All right, now we're getting down to the technical nitty-gritty, and there's a couple of key tools that you're going to need at this point. Now, you can pick them up at the power cart at redbarronshoppers.com. Just keyword search rings or ring compressor. Show me how this thing works, Jay.
Simple enough. It is directional. You can see the arrow on there that points at the bottom. What we're going to do is cover up the rings on the rear piston. You're going to bring that to it's about flush with the top of the piston there.
All right.
Go ahead and put your clamp on there. Everything's good. It'll hold itself on. Go ahead and grab your cylinders. The front and rear cylinders are the same. Okay. So it doesn't matter which one.
Interchangeable.
Interchangeable. Now we're going to put the piston inside the bottom of the case and then just slowly slide it down. As you can see.
Yeah, it looks like we popped out there.
Yep. But it should guide itself back on. There it goes.
There we go.
Okay.
How about that?
Now we've got our piston started inside the sleeve. What we're going to do now is unleash the clamp. Pop that off. Slide the compressor out. We're going to go ahead
and slide that cylinder all the way on.
All the way down.
Nice.
Like so.
All right, so we got a rear cylinder on. Same thing with the front cylinder.
Same thing with the front
cylinder.
Put your compressor tool over the rings.
Compressor ring clamp tool on.
Set it up the top of the piston there.
Just like that, you're on.
Just like that.
Pull off your ring compressor and smash it all the way down.
Sliding down.
We have our pistons on, we have our cylinders on, and let's take a look one more time at the size of the old 883 pistons and these new monster piston heads. That is a ton of horsepower and torque difference, is it not, Jay?
Yes, sir.
All right, Jay, what do we got now?
Next is installing your head gaskets and then your heads. With these gaskets, they're going to fit on either way, right side up or down, doesn't matter. But one thing you do have to remember is there is an O-ring that goes around all of your dowels here. You have 4 dowels on top. You do have to have an O-ring for each of those.
Now, once again, all these parts come in the kit that you can pick up on the power cart at redbarronshoppers.com. Am I right?
Yes.
All right, we got our O-rings in. Now we put on our heads. And looking at these valves, Jay, the intake valve is quite black in my mind.
Yeah, the intake valve always runs cooler than the exhaust valve. Therefore, the exhaust valve is going to run hotter and cleaner.
Now, 9 times out of 10, your valves aren't going to be a problem. Am I right?
No, they shouldn't be unless this motor's been beat to hell. Your valves should be fine.
All right, let's rock and roll and put it on.
First thing we're going to replace is your push rod upper seals. So you have 2 O-rings per cylinder per head. Just fit in there just like so. Push them in, and they'll seat themselves. Now when we go to set this rear cylinder on, make sure that the push rod tubes seat in like so, and that their dowels go into the dowel receptors on your head. They will self-align itself.
And you should hear an audible click when the dowels slide into their dowel receptors. All right, so we don't want to just start chucking things back together at this point. We got to take our time and make sure everything's done properly. Right. So we're getting ready to put our head bolts in. What do we need to do these head bolts first?
Put a little bit of oil, a little bit of regular engine oil just on the threads. Just a drop. A drop in each one is perfect. This is to prevent the bolts from seizing onto the cylinder studs. Now the upper bolts, the longer bolts go in the center. Now this doesn't really matter which one goes in first or last. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to get them all finger tight.
Now, after you get them finger tight, this is the part that's very important. There is a proper procedure in which to torque these. Am I right, Jay?
Yes.
And if you do not follow the specific torque specifications, sooner or later you're going to have problems that you could have avoided by simply doing the job properly the first time around.
The sequence for torquing this head down properly is going to be uphill, starting from the outside. You're going to start with the lower outside, the upper outside, the lower inside, the upper inside, and you're going to go that way equally all the way through until you're done with the sequence. Now your first torque for all 4 of your bolts is going to be 7 to 9 foot-pounds.
7 to 9 foot-pounds. All right, our second torque sequence is
12 to 15 foot-pounds.
12 to 15. Now, you were saying a second ago that every single torque is supposed to be done in one smooth stroke until you hear that click, correct?
Yes. Otherwise, you can have an improper torque.
And nobody wants an improper torque. Now, this might seem like one of the most tedious parts of the job, but it's actually the most important part of this job. Jay, tell them what they can have if they improperly torque these bolts.
You can warp the head, which you'll never get a good seal after that, and that's pretty much your main concern, other than having the gasket which is going to blow out and you're going to have to redo it again anyway.
All right, now, Jay, you have these bolts torqued down to the right specs so far. You've pulled out your Sharpie, and what are you doing drawing on the cylinder head?
Your last torque is going to be a 90-degree turn of each bolts. So what you want to do is you want to have a good starting spot, and then you want to be able to know that you're going to turn that bolt 90 degrees.
This is the 90-degree torque. It helps if, unlike us, right now, you have an engine. You have an engine stand or someone stronger than me. But if you have someone who's weak like me, it helps that you drew those Sharpie marks. Am I right, Jay? Okay. All right, we got our rear bolts torqued to the right specs. It's now time to put on our front cylinder head.
Yep. First things first, again, as we did with the rear cylinder head, your push rod tube gasket. You felt everything click in?
Yep. There it is. Yep.
You were there.
Heard that audible click, and we're ready to go. Same as before, we're going to go through the same sequence in torques, but first, do not forget, put just a little bit of engine oil in those bolts so you don't get them seized or locked in.